here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, I hope you can hear by my voice right now as I come into this episode 103. We're coming with the energy. We're coming with the energy because I'm pretty excited. We're about a quarter of the way through the season, and the game is living up to a lot of the standards we have with rugby league, NRL, whatever you want to say. And that really, to me, is we're getting to the point now where we're starting to see teams separate. We're starting to see some teams bunch together. But what we're seeing is the game that we love to follow has consequence. And those consequences really manifested themselves this last weekend from suspensions, but most importantly from injuries. We're going to go into all this after we go on the recap of last weekend. But we're really coming up to it right now because we're starting to see teams being affected by their futures going forward by games that are happening in rounds 9 and 10. So here we go. Let's do a recap really quick. Starting the round, we had the big showdown between the Panthers and the Rabbitohs, and boy, oh boy, Shedheads, did the Shedadamus get this one wrong. I thought that the Rabbitohs were going to rally. Demetrio was gone. There was a new voice in the shed. It was just going to motivate them. And then I forgot that Latrell's not back until this week. And Panthers 42, Rabbitohs 12. Even without Nathan Cleary, the Panthers continue to show their championship pedigree. Misery to South Sydney continues. And now the misery continues because of the casualty ward injuries that came out of this. Murray, Hawkins, they all go down to injuries. They're going to be pretty long injuries. This won't just affect the Rabbitohs. This is also going to affect the Blues when it comes to Cam Murray. So that's quite a shock to the system to both teams. But the Rabbitohs, again, not being able to get themselves straight. Hopefully with Latrell coming up, which we'll talk about soon, this is going to help get their season going. It's probably too late already. But then on the other hand, the Penrith Panthers just continue. And then with rumors coming out about the possible addition that we're going to talk about to the club in the near future, who knows? The sky's the limit again for the team in black at the foot of the Blue Mountains. Raiders 26, Sea Eagles 24. The game to me that showed why we love rugby league so much, because a young club that has not had success, getting blanked last week, going to Brookvale Oval, a staple of the game, where Manly usually plays some of their best footy, going down 20-0, and then finding that it inside of them. Some of that to me is Whitehead coming back to the team, and I think having that veteran voice, even though I don't know if all the guys in the locker room could understand him that well. That's a joke. All my English listeners, don't get mad at me. But what I'm saying is, it shows that the game is never over. And I listened to some of the pundits. Blocker Roach was talking that back in the day, when teams got down 20-0, that was pretty much a swan song. Game over. We'll see you next week. But that's not the case anymore. How the game has switched to being an offensive game, how every team has just these pedigree athletes, these quarter horses, that at a moment's notice can break the game wide open with a end-to-end try. It just, the Mo switched, and it was really crazy. Gus Gould said something that I also thought was fascinating. He said it's tough for a team to win a game twice. And that's what I think we really, really watched, was Manly thought they got up 20-0. A lot of people thought in a moment's notice they were going to be up 40-0. And it didn't happen. And then that try before half just kind of kept the Green Machine thinking that they weren't out of this. And is there a better coach in the locker rooms than Sticky to get in there to possibly fire his boys up, to let them know that they're still in the fight? And they came out and showed it. 2 quick tries in the second half, and the rest is history. And it was really, to me, it was really telling because a team that looked like the game was theirs to be had early on in Manly, you started seeing panic in their eyes. Like this was just a tsunami of events that they couldn't get out of the way of. And the Green Machine just rode over the top of them. And I was really, really happy for Canberra. They really needed some type of positive reinforcement to keep their season going. You know, they're still in touch with the 8. And I think this team, we really don't know what we're going to get from Canberra. They're so young. They've got injuries right now where you would think that would really cost them. But then they come back and they get a victory like they did over Manly and Brookie. So, great match. Maybe to me, my favorite match of the round was that match. But, again, congrats to the Raiders. Roosters 40, Broncos 18. The loss of Adam Reynolds and misfiring Reece Walsh. You can't have those two events happen for a Broncos club that are playing a Roosters team that really seems like they're finding their stride. And the Sydney Roosters look like that club that at the beginning of this season I said was my pick to go. They look like that they're starting to see themselves that way. And I will tell you who I'm most excited for. I'm most excited for Angus Crichton, a guy that really came out and was really vocal about mental health, some of the problems he was having, and he was honest and he was transparent, and that's such a beautiful thing to have in sports, not just rugby league, but any sport nowadays. And I think we're finding athletes more and more feeling comfortable to come out and say that they're having mental health situations and issues. But wow, what a game this guy had, and the season he's starting to put together. You have to say Angus Crichton, if he puts together another couple of weeks like this, is going to be a hot pick for the Blues. So again, the Chooks look strong, 40-18 over the Broncos. That was a statement game. And then you have to look at the Broncos. No Jock Madden this week because of that pectoral injury. Reynolds out, and which we're going to talk about these injuries here soon. But the Bronx could be in trouble, and they're already in 7th spot right now on the ladder. They're going to have to really show some championship pedigree to hold in there and to stay in touch, because I don't know. I don't know without Adam Reynolds, do they have the possibility to stay in the top 4? And I think a lot of this is going to come down to the way that Ezra Mann plays in the halves. And if he can take over that 7 jersey, which I have a feeling that's how they're going to play this. And if he can steer the club around the park. We saw this guy getting three tries in the grand final last year. So he's got that it factor. But for everybody at Suncorp in those sheds to look at him as the new general of that team, does he have that? And we're going to find that out here in the next 12 to 14 weeks with Adam Reynolds being out. Bulldogs 22, Tigers 14. The sad part about this match is the Dogs and the Tigers really stopped being the talk of the match. The talk of the match ended up being with Casey Badger in the bunker. And I'm not going to go into this right now because I have a deep dive into this after we finish this recap. But the Doggies come on top, get the victory. It just is really, really sad when we talk about things other than the match itself being the big talking point when it ends. But Doggies get the victory. Storm 22, Titans 20. The Larrikin himself, Cameron Munster, celebrating his 200th game. The Storm getting up to a big lead. Another game where they just hold on and they stave off. They give a little don't argue to the Titans that were coming. Again, though, the bunker rears its ugly head. 2 big moments in it, which we're going to talk about. But the thing that I think, again, we leave that with is another injury. An injury that we're going to do a deeper dive into. But, again, how many games have we talked about right now? And I'm not even halfway through talking about this round. And it's about injuries that we're talking about. So, Storm get their victory and let Cameron Munster celebrate his 200th the right way. Dolphins 28, Cowboys 26. After a first half shootout, Finns just breach. That's all you can say. The Finns, the Clint Eastwood boys, find a way to get the victory, to help the Dolphins continue an incredible season for them right now. And let's be honest, on the other side of the board right there, you have to look at the Cowboys now losing 4 in a row. A team that earlier this season, we're talking about they had a point to prove after last season and they were firing on all cylinders. But their defense has not been up to par so far this season, and it's showing. And I think we're also seeing, even though it was nice to see Jake Clifford back on an NRL track, I think we see how important Chad Townsend is to that club. And Chad was out for this game, and I'm not 100% sure if Chad's even going to be back this week. But what is being said right now is the defensive woes could cost North Queensland at the back end of the season if they don't get it straightened up. I think with Todd Payton at the helm, they can do this, but they've got to do it starting this week. Knights 14, Warriors 8. Knights again show that they're not just a one-man club. And I know how great of a star Kalen Ponga is, but, and I stress that but, with him being out, Newcastle has looked inward, and every match we watch, a different guy steps up at key moments. Last week, it was the rookie at the fullback position. This week, Jackson Hastings again starts to dictate and to guide his team around the side. They just seem to get a little bit more dirty when Kalen Ponga is not in the lineup. Now, I don't know if this is a lasting trend that they can ride through the season until Kalen comes back, but I will say that they look like a sound club without a guy that's supposed to be as much of a gun as he is. And again, this is not taking anything away from Kalen Ponga. What this is saying is what I think the beauty of sport is when teams and when players have to look at themselves, that they have to step up because a all-star is not in the lineup. Sometimes you see the best performances out of these players. And it makes you wonder what they would be like if they all played that way with that guy in the side. But again, they proved that they can do it again. The Warriors, the season's in the balance right now. And I know Sean Johnson is injured. I hate to say this, but unfortunately Sean Johnson is usually injured, even though he's one of my favorite players to ever watch in the game. But the big talk is he's not practicing during the week. They're kind of nurturing him along. But we're only a quarter of the way through the season. Do we just think miraculously Sean Johnson is just going to heal up? Or is it time that Sean Johnson gets rested for a couple weeks? They have enough in the halves that they could go on without him. I know his kicking game has been incredible the last couple of seasons, especially last season. But right now, I think the talk has to be, no matter how much, the talk from Adam, that Webster he's going to keep Chance in the fullback position. I just don't think you get enough strike with Chance over keeping him there instead of putting RTS back there. And I think we watched that match when RTS came back in the fullback position, how dangerous and how quick switch that guy is. And even though Chance Nickel-Klokstad is a reliable fullback, I don't think he's a dangerous fullback. I don't think he's that type of game-breaking fullback. I think he just is a custodian back there that makes sure that things don't get put out of place. But he just doesn't have that it. And I think right now the Warriors are wasting RTS by not letting him touch the ball more than he is, being put in the position that he is in right now. So I think there's some big questions that are going to have to be answered by this club and very, very shortly, because they are very close to losing contact with the top 8. But again, great victory for the Knights. Again, showing what teamwork and team chemistry can mean. And finally, the Shane Flanagan Derby. Sharks 20, Dragons 10. Dragons were in the fight quite a bit. Or is it the Dargans? Is it the Dargans? I don't know. You're going to have to ask Jack Bird. Maybe it's the St. George Dargans. Anyway, any of you who follow the game, that's a joke that you'll all get. But the Sharkies continue to march along, up Cronulla. The Shire's still going crazy. I don't know if they've turned the lights off since 2016, but what they are doing right now in the field, keeping themselves in the number one position, they're looking like a strike team. Now, the beautiful thing about Cronulla is over the next 4 weeks, we're going to find out if they are the real deal or not. Cronulla's had a problem recently of beating top 4 sides, top 8 sides, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're going to have a chance to prove it. And it starts with this week with their big showdown with the Melbourne Storm, which we're going to talk about. But Cronulla right now, shutting down Team Flanagan, getting that victory, putting St. George back into the questioning tactics. But I'll say one thing. He's proving again, time and time again, that Kyle Flanagan is a good player. I've never once called Kyle Flanagan into question. I think he just has to have somebody who believes in him, which his father does. And when they give him that type of confidence, Kyle Flanagan is a heck of a player. And I think there's a reason a lot of people thought that he would be in the Habs. Because if you think about it, if Shane Flanagan doesn't get moved on, you wonder if Kyle isn't still the heir apparent in the Habs and doesn't go to the Roosters. Just talk like that is what makes you really wonder. But he's back with his dad again now, and like I said, I think he's playing incredible football. Now, it didn't help St. George actually get over the top of Cronulla, but I think it's a talking point that is very, very interesting to me. Now, no matter how great this last weekend was with the games we just talked about, I'm getting very, very frustrated. I'm getting very, very frustrated because I want to talk about what happens on the field between the players, right? I've always said a great game is we don't talk about officiating, and we definitely don't talk about instant replay officials at all. And I was going to say instant replay officiating and officials, so that's why I just ran the two on there for a second. But unfortunately, this round that just transpired has become the Casey Badger and the bunker round. And to me, what makes it so not cool is because women fight very, very tough to be seen as equals in a male-driven sport, all right? And there's a reason that there aren't any NHL female referees. There aren't barely any NFL officials, barely any NBA officials. And that is the scrutiny that comes upon female officials officiating male games. And when you take that stance of trying to have female officials calling male games, there's a lot of things that transpire there. One, not every guy respects women the way that they should. And from the years that I've done this podcast, Shedheads, I am a huge fan of women, and there's nothing better to me than a strong woman. I think that's a powerful piece. And if you look at it, except for the divided states, most Western countries have had a female premier, president. They've had leaders that have been females, all right? So I have no problem with that. I know some people do, maybe my country, but I do not. I think it's a great thing. I sometimes think that women are needed in that capacity. But the problem for women is when it goes wrong. And it went wrong in this match between the Tigers and the Dogs. And I have nothing against, trust me, the screaming of the last name Badger has been going on for a long time, all right? And we won't talk about the Gavin Badger. We won't talk about any other Badgers, but we're just going to say we've heard that screaming of Badger. My first Tigers match, that's all I heard was, "Get him back 10, Badger!" That's all I heard from the fans all around me, right? But I really felt bad for Casey Badger because I kind of was sitting there and it was kind of like a little dust bowl off the west coast of Africa, right? And that's how all hurricanes start. It starts with just a little bit of wind, and then it gets off into moist water, and then it starts going across the United States. And as it gets closer to the divided states, what does it do? If it just hits the right type of currents and it keeps churning, next thing you know, you've got a Category 5 hurricane getting ready to hit Florida, which I can't think of a better state to hit. I'm sorry, all my fans from Florida. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. But anyway, what I'm saying is it started as a wisp, and then it just went out of control. And it started with that non-send-off of Aiden Caesar, which is crazy to hear because some people say that it was a hip drop, and then you have Graham Annesley saying it was not a hip drop. It was a dangerous tackle. All right? So that's, again, where our problem comes in with the NRL at this current juncture. It's that the normal fan, and that is me included, sometimes have no idea what the call is going to be like on the field. And you can't have things, when it comes to rules, be this convoluted where people don't know what it's going to be. And when the guys in the booth all are waiting for Aiden Caesar to get sent off for 10, and he only gets put on report, I think that just sent a message to a lot of the guys on the field, what's going on here? And does Casey Badger have control of this? And that is the problem sometimes for female officials right now. Unless you're really totally respected right off the bat, and they think that they deserve to give you the utmost respect. And the problem is no officials are almost given the utmost respect. I guess Adam G's given quite a bit of respect in the game. And it just kind of transpired from there. You know, Caesar gets put on report. And then, you know, the David Klemmer situation, when he yells at Casey Badger 3 times, and it's not even anything personal. He's just yelling at her that a player got knocked over. I know those weren't the exact words that he used. But when did somebody yelling something 3 times culminate in you giving somebody 10 minutes in the bend for that? That's just not it. And then when everybody came together and Reed Monty being Reed Monty and coming in and being the agitator, let me tell you something. You heard me tell you guys time and time again, Shedheads, I have no problem with the biff. Because if the biff happens, there's no players like Reed Monty who are 5'3" who are going to get their face in the middle of that type of dust up because they know they're going to get blasted. That those big T-Rexes out there, and I'm sorry, not you, Tony Williams, but those big T-Rexes out there would eat that small appetizer. But he knows that they can't hit him or they're going to get a gigantic suspension. And to me, that's where the self-policing of playing is so important to the game, because you wouldn't have that type of stuff of Reed Monty and some of these guys running in because they know that there's not going to be any type of retribution for them coming in and niggling and doing what they do, right? But then when that happens, Casey Badger doesn't send Reed Monty out. She doesn't give him 10 minutes in the bend, and nobody else gets sent to the bend. It was a total loss of institutional control at that time. Now, in defense of Casey Badger, we've seen plenty of matches where officials look like they have no idea. My gosh, we saw Jerome Hughes get suspended because he pushed a referee out of the way because he was in the wrong position, right? So it's not just Casey Badger. I just think that when you see a guy like Graham Annesley coming out defending and trying to ask for calm, you've got a problem. And I think a lot of people are frustrated with the officiating of the game right now. Because I think some officials don't know because they think they're getting ready to get overruled by the bunker anyway. Or they're starting to wait for the bunker to buzz down to them. They're waiting for the eye in the sky to help dictate how they should officiate the match. And that is the problem with this bunker system. Is that you take away the ability for these officials to really put their stamp on the game, because the moment they put the stamp on the game, they can be overridden if something gets, called down or buzzed down to them. And as I defend Casey Badger, I'm going to go 100% guns blazing against the bunker, because the things that they're missing is just, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable whatsoever, because you go not even this match, you go to the Titans match where there was a try confirmed that made the Appy Curacao try of last week look like it was a no-brainer, which it was. Even when you make a call that the try is confirmed and the guy is making faces on the field because he can't believe that they gave it to him, you've missed the plot. And then when Nick Meaney drops the ball and they rule in favor of Nick Meaney, saying that he played at the ball when it looked like the guy was just trying to make a tackle. Jimmy Graham said it best when the game was live. He said, we've got somebody in the bunker that's never made a tackle and has not played the game ever in their life. And again, that is what is being thought by people who are watching it. People who are watching it, the people that are putting the numbers, the people that are helping these TV contracts go on are losing faith. And then you've got the non-penalty try given in the Warriors match when Dalen Witini-Zelezniak is up in the air. If he's not touched or tackled in the air, he's going to get that ball down. We've watched Dalen now for the last 2 seasons with the Warriors with his aerial acrobatics. But again, the bunker, and then you heard the official on the ground saying, we don't give tries for that reason. And then you have Graham Ansley coming out saying, I don't know why he said that because that's the perfect time to be given a try. You're hearing 2 different things in both of your ears. And people cannot handle that. I'm telling you, the NFL does a lot of things wrong. One of it is giving too much power to their owners and not enough power to their players. But we won't go into this right now because we're not doing outside the bubble right now. But what I'm saying is you can't do this to people, because if people are living a daily life where there's laws and regulations and there's no sliding either way with those laws and regulations, they expect the same thing to happen on a field where there's officials. And if that's not happening, people lose faith in that sport. That's why gambling is such a dangerous thing in America right now. I know you guys have had punters in Australia forever, and I told you guys, episodes ago when I was over there for the Auckland Nines, and people were actually making bets in the stadium. I was blown away by that because at that time, gambling wasn't in America legally as it is in Australia and New Zealand, right? But the moment that people think the integrity of the game is in balance, you will lose viewers and you will lose viewership. And that is what's so sad about the game right now in the NRL, is that as you continue to make excuses for these indiscretions, you can talk and make excuses till you're blue in the face. But if the normal layman does not believe in what you're saying, and he's waiting each week for Graham Ansley to make an excuse for that, you've lost the plot. And soon you'll lose viewers. And that's what you cannot have. And it's too good of a game. The NRL is really, they've made a couple of costly decisions in the last 5 seasons that have really put the game in balance. No matter how much they keep looking at these numbers of viewership, right, on TV, but you're going to lose the plot if you do not get this handled. I promise you this. But that's enough. I'm off my soapbox, Shedheads. Take in what I just said there. Let it sink in a little bit, okay? That was a big barrage. That was a hurricane-type downpour. But let it just soak into the ground a little bit of what I just said. And trust me, this podcast is incredible to listen to more than once. So if you need to go back and listen again what the Shedadamus said, you do it. Now let's go into Cameron Munster and that big celebration for his 200th game. A victory over the Titans that unfortunately was overshadowed later in the game. But I'm a big fan of Cameron Munster, and it's kind of, to me, almost, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, but to me it's almost shocking that Cameron Munster's made it to 200 games, because he's been on the brink, from the little white powder substance to some drinking indiscretions to him in the bathroom betting on horses before a game. The guy, to say that he's a larrikin is an understatement. It looks like a lot of that has changed. It looks like he's got into control of his life a little bit more. He's a father now. He's a husband. And I think Bellyache has really helped him become the man that we see right now. trust me, the guy is still a scalawag, but I think that we've seen a maturity come into Cameron Munster that has been really great to see, and it just has taken a long time. And fortunately for him, the indiscretions that he did not 100% take the wheels off his car to disable him from driving, because he drove into 200, looking good. The last 2 games he's played quite well, and that's including the game against the Titans. But unfortunately for him, that 200th game was overshadowed by maybe the most unlucky player that I've seen in modern sports for a very, very long time, and that's Ryan Papenhausen. Because when Ryan Papenhausen made that tackle to A.J. Brimson in the end goal, and all of a sudden I start seeing him reach for the ankle that he just came back from the ankle injury, I instantly got nervous. And I think most of you Shedheads know that Mrs. Shedadamus is in the medical field. Matter of fact, she's quite brilliant. Matter of fact, she tries to put me to sleep every night, but that's something totally different. But I knew that it was bad, and I knew that it was not good because of his reaction, right? But if you look at this poor guy, this is the latest injury from, or the number 3 in what he's had to deal with. In 2022, he had the kneecap fracture, which cost him 12 months. He came back from that, and a few matches later, he fractured his ankle, and he just came back from that. And that ankle that he just came back from was the same ankle, or the same leg, as I should say correctly. It was the same leg that fibula fractured happened on. As you can see, I'm not the medical professional of the family. Okay, anyway. But when you talk about injuries for players, it's really crazy when guys come back from a knee injury, they usually hurt the hamstring on the other leg. And that's because you've trained so hard on that one leg to get it stronger again. It just makes that other side a little bit more weak because you're concentrating on pushing off on that leg and blah, 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 blah. What makes it a little concerning to me for Ryan Papenhausen is that injury happened again on the same leg that was injured, that had that ankle injury. And you hope and you pray that this leg just isn't so compromised now. This is just the beginning of frequent injuries to the lower extremities. And you hope not. Because to me, Papenhausen came back. He looked like he put on 15 pounds of muscle. He looked like he was ready for the fight. But I think a guy that just goes hell on wheels for an entire match, and he's not a big guy. He just isn't. Even with him bulking up a little bit, he's not a big guy. You just hope that this is just it. There was big talk back in the mid-2000s. Benji kept getting shoulder injuries. And there was big talk that Benji was maybe going to have to retire because of the frequency of his shoulder injuries. As we know from Benji's career, that did not happen. But hopefully this is the path that Ryan Papenhausen will go down. To hopefully this leg stabilizes. Even possibly if they keep him out maybe an extra week or 2 longer to really make sure that he's healed up. But wow, if that wasn't gut-wrenching to see Pappy go down like that. And, it was sad that did take away from, Cameron Munster's 200th game. But anyway, speedy recovery to Ryan Papenhausen. Again, congratulations to Cameron Munster on his 200th. Now, as we go into the 40-20 Shedheads, I said we were going to go back into this. We're going to have to go into, I don't want to call it casualty round because unfortunately we're starting to talk about this once a year like this. But it seems to happen when you get about a quarter away through the season that guys' bodies start to break down a little bit. And that's what just happened in this last round. Because the amount of injuries that happened, and not just injuries and little niggling injuries, but injuries that could possibly keep clubs from living their dreams come to fruition, plain and simple. These are limiting injuries to key components to these clubs. So let's go over this list right now. We start with maybe the other gut-wrenching injury of the round, the Broncos, Adam Reynolds, torn bicep. The look on the little general when he knew instantly his arm was gone, and then still trying to make a tackle with one arm. But 12 to 14 weeks. Now, I think they have 2 or 3 rounds, the Brisbane Broncos, so that might only be 9 matches for Adam Reynolds. But again, unfortunately, the little general's body is breaking down. He's a little man playing a big game sport, and I think just year after year after year, the toll of his body is really starting to show. But, it's going to be a while before he's back. And so this is going to mean that a Jock Madden coming off a pec injury is going to probably have to slide into halves and play alongside Ezra Mam. And that is going to be the determining factor of where the Broncos season goes. But then in that same match, Jesse Arthurs broke his jaw, and he's out 6 weeks too. So some key injuries for Brisbane that could, again, scuttle their chances to lifting that trophy at the end of the season. Rabbitohs, another team that just can't get a break. Dean Hawkins, quadricep, 12 weeks. Cam Murray, hip flexor, 6 to 8 weeks. And Jai Gray, syndesmosis, 8 to 10 weeks. Now, one positive in the situation for Jai Gray is that, again, Latrell is coming back this week. But losing their captain, Cameron Murray, this is going to rule Cam Murray out of Origin, probably. It's really sad when you see clubs going through what South Sydney's going through and just not be able to get a break at all. And you just, I hate to say it because we're only a quarter way through the season, but you start to think that some of the South Sydney faithful are just waiting for this season to end to get possibly Wayne Bennett in to come back home for next season. The Storm, Jerome Hughes, who's been playing through that calf injury. He's finally subsided to it. 3 to 4 weeks for him. And Ryan Pappenhausen, that fibula fracture's out 6 to 8 weeks. We're not even talking because that didn't happen this week, but Xavier Coates is out too. Those are 3 key outs for the Storm for their upcoming match, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Toby Rudolph, knee for the Sharks, who, again, are taking on the Storm. But the big man is out 4 weeks with that knee injury. The Titans, another team that can't get a break, who keep knocking on the door, but just can't seem to get that victory. Early on in their match against the Storm, Tanner Boyd comes down, dislocated wrist. He's out for 6 weeks. And then the Warriors, another club that, again, can't get in that win column again, can't get that magic from 2023 back at this current juncture, but Kurt Capewell, calf injury, 4 to 5 weeks for him. And you just look at some of these injuries for some of these clubs. These are key members to these clubs that you look, if you remove them from these sides, could cost them and probably keep them from championship glory. So to me, I love the aspect of when you see this type of thing happen, when the coaching kicks in, which coaches finds the magical brushes, the brush strokes, with painting, with putting together that masterpiece. Who can overcome not having certain colors and still paint yourself a masterpiece? And we're going to watch that because there are some good coaches here, but what do they do with these key members being out? Now, Shedheads, with all the attention and talk that we just had about all the injuries, we've got 2 big player personalities that are going to be back into the side this week. As you can tell, I've mentioned his name a couple of times now. One of them is Latrell Mitchell. He's returning to a South Sydney club that does not look anywhere close to the club roster, starting lineup as what we've expected to see, especially during this part of the season. This is a desperate club that needs a firing Latrell. And to me, the question is, which Latrell do they get back? Do they get back a Latrell that is going to be a little apprehensive? Or are you going to get a Latrell that tries maybe a little too hard? Or do you get a Latrell that is in the right state of mind and knows exactly what he means to his club and what he needs to do to get his club back? And to me, that is a determining factor going forward of For one, the Rabbitohs, but two, I would say the Latrell Mitchell legacy. How does he come back from this most recent blip on his history with the game? So Latrell is back. And then the other big back this week is Spencer Linnew. Maybe, as I think about this, maybe the biggest player this season that I think a lot of people have forgotten about because the game has been so crazy. But maybe the guy that has the biggest bullseye on his back, coming back from the racial slur he used against Ezra Mann in Vegas. That's how long ago this was. It almost feels like Vegas happened last season and not just, weeks ago. But the Chooks are a firing club right now. They look like maybe the team to beat, or definitely one of the top 4 sides to beat easily, the way they've played the last few weeks. And when you add a big body and the force that Spencer Linnew comes into the table with, wow. Can I say that again? Wow. Because I don't know, truthfully, if anybody's 100% prepared for this guy coming back, if he is really truthfully motivated, and if he's made peace, and if he's ready to be the player that the Chooks were so excited to get. Because, with Angus Crichton playing the way he has, JWH, going to come back, the Chooks are just reloading right now. And I think we all know they've got to reload this season because I don't know if anybody knows what they're fully going to look like next year. But Spencer Linnew coming into this side, coming into this club, it's a bad sign for the rest of the league. That's all I can say there. Now, a lot of player movement, a lot of player talk, but we cannot go any further without the big moment, big news story, big possible movement in the Gold Coast. And you know what we're talking about. We're talking about the saga that is David Fifita. And I don't know where he's going, Shedheads. I waited late to start recording this podcast because I was hoping to be able to break a story on it about where possibly David Fifita is going. But as I go to recording this right now, it still hasn't come down. I know that there's footage of Nick Fanning walking around Gold Coast, and we know what a Penrith homer he is. But I don't think anybody knows where this guy's going. I think he, in the back of his mind, knows where he possibly can go, but this is big. But I don't know if it's as bad as a lot of people think it could be if he does opt out and leave Gold Coast. Because I think Gold Coast could use that $1 million they would spend on David Fifita, and they could get maybe a half, or maybe get a couple players in there that could really change Gold Coast direction. Because I think all of us will be honest right now when we say that we don't think David Fifita has lived up to all of the smoke that came with this guy when he first came into the league and when he first signed with the Gold Coast Titans. People were talking like he could almost walk on water. Yes, he's a heck of a player. Yes, he's done some incredible barnstorming runs. But has he lived up to what a lot of people thought that he was going to be? And the answer is no. Now, the two clubs that are really coming for him are the Penrith Panthers and, as you can guess, the team with a $4 million war chest, the Sydney Roosters. Now, a lot of people think when the Roosters come for somebody that they get him, all right? Almost a mafioso type feeling. But right now, a lot of people feel that the Penrith Panthers are the team to beat. And a lot of people think after the phone call that was just made between Nathan Cleary and David Fifita that it was a signed and sealed deal. That listening to the future Blues captain and partial captain, because no one can tell me that Nathan Cleary isn't a gigantic voice with that Penrith team. But getting this guy on the phone, and for David Fifita to be thinking that this is the half that I'll be able to play with for some considerable time in the future, and the thought process of winning a championship, winning a premiership. I think those are the things that are going into David Fifita's mind right now, and I think that's why unfortunately for the Gold Coast Titans, or fortunately for the Gold Coast Titans, that this means David Fifita is possibly leaving the club. And I really do think that that would not be the worst thing for the Gold Coast Titans. But to me, I'm even pushed forward to the point of which club would best benefit from having David Fifita. With all the pieces that the Roosters are losing in the near future, you definitely have to think that they're the team that really need him more than Penrith. Yes, Penrith are losing a few players, but Penrith has that factory system just churning out incredible parts time and time again after they lose players. And it's been very infrequently they've gone out and brought in a big money player to plug in the hole. But I think if you look at systems, I think that's what also entices him. And that's why, I get that sense that I'm leaning that he's going to Penrith as well. But I would not be surprised if the Chooks become the Chooks and get their man. But it is going to be interesting to see, because I think this signing or this move could affect all three of these clubs in monumental ways, and not negative for some of them either. So David Fifita coming down, something tells me episode 104 we will be talking in more detail about the landing spot for David Fifita, but right now it's up in the air, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see where that big plow ends up in the near future. Now finally, for our 40-20, we've got to talk about that Titanic clash that's coming out. We get it, Shedheads. A number 1 versus number 2. The Cronulla Sharks versus the Melbourne Storm. And I come on, Shedheads. Do we really need anything more than key big matchups? And yes, we talked about the bunker and Casey Badger and officiating and blah, blah, blah. All the problems with the game, right? But does nothing make you more excited when you hear about these possible matchups? And that's the beauty of the NRL, all right? Everybody's got their problems, but we seem to get one of these matchups every week that just has our mouth watering, right? And that continues with this matchup right now, because there's been a little bit of rivalry between these two clubs, and I think that it just really intensified and got even deeper because now they have history. Because we've got the 2016 Grand Final that Mick Ennis drove the Melbourne Storm crazy, like he drives a lot of people crazy. Again, one of my favorite players because of that. But that's, again, history that has been made between these two, right? History that's probably they don't like each other too much. And that's what we get to see this weekend for the late game or early morning game, no matter where you live around the world. For us, it's almost 5 a.m. that game is playing on Saturday morning. But I'm very, very excited to see how this thing transpires because there's a lot really that rides in the balance of this match. And a lot of it, you would have to say, rides more in the balance for the Cronulla Sharks because one, they have a problem going down to Melbourne and getting victories, right? And that has to be changed, right? They've got to once again kill that hex of not being able to beat top 4 sides during the regular season, but also prove that they can go down to Melbourne and get a big victory. Now, for the Storm, that's a lot of pieces out for them this week. And I know that we were talking about the brilliance of Cam Munster, but not having Hughes, Pappenhausen, and Coates, and Peasant isn't able to plug in there now because he tore his knee. So you have to say you're leaning towards the Sharks being able to get that victory. But then you come back to Nico Hines. A guy that you wonder how that mounting pressure, that mounting weight of possibly being in consideration for the 6 jersey for the New South Wales Blues, and how everybody's scrutinizing every week he plays, if that plays him even more into possibly that 6 jersey, if that weighs on him in his decision-making process against the Storm? Does he try too hard? And that's another thing that makes this a very, very interesting game to watch, because the lasting effect for a lot of the players on this is also very, very, very important. I definitely tell you this, Shedheads, it is must-watch television, because I don't think any of us know which way it's going to go. Because any normal club that would be missing those three type of players, they're probably going to roll, fold over, use the excuse for missing too many guys. We would love to have won it, but we couldn't, blah, blah, blah. But that is not the Melbourne Storm. That is not bellyache. They find ways. They look for loopholes. They look for weaknesses. And to me, that's why this is still a must-watch game, because even though they're going to be a little undermanned, they're still the Melbourne Storm playing in Melbourne, and the Sharks still have a point to prove. So make sure, Shedheads, you tune in for that, because to me, this game is going to be fire, if you know what I mean. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that would be your Shedadamus going 1 for 8 last week in his picks. I hope that didn't cost you guys any homeowners payments or cost you buying the missus a great wedding day or anniversary gift, because I apologize to you. I swung and I missed, but like the great Casey at bat, I will pick up my lumber. I will put the pine tar on it, not as much as George Brett, if any of you know that. But I'm going to swing, and I'm going to swing hard right now. And as we go in around 10, as we go into our picks, we started off by Thursday, Sea Eagles versus the Dolphins, playing at Suncorp. I got to go. I got to go with the Dolphins. I got to go with Clint Eastwood and his boys. I've got to go with the standpoint they've got something going on at Redcliffe. And I'm going to say the Dolphins, I think they put mounting pressure back on a Manly club that let a game slip away last week. And I think the Dolphins, again, play off of that and get the victory up at Suncorp. And it starts the vacation for Manly, since they're going to be staying up there because of Magic Round. Friday, Bulldogs versus the Panthers. We've got half a Panthers club that now play for the Bulldogs against their old club. But Nathan Cleary's back this week. By that point, we'll know probably if David Fafita is saying he's going to Penrith or not. But I just think this team is buoyed. I think that they're going to play with abandon. And I think they've proven with Dylan Edwards that defense is just spot on. And I'm going to take the Panthers. I can't go against the three-time defending champions. We go Panthers. Broncos versus the Eels. You know what? Right now, this is that moment where I say, wow, all the money looks like it should go one way, you bet the other way. But I just don't see the Broncos falling to an Eels club that doesn't even have their, I know Blaze is going to play in the fullback position for the Eels, but I've got to admit, I just don't think they have enough strike to beat the Broncos. So I'm going with the Broncos in that. Saturday, Knights versus the Tigers. Yes, the Tigers have improved. Yes, they look like they might be going in some ways the right direction. They're getting great pieces in for next season, but that's not going to help them this season. And I think this Newcastle team has found the button. I think they've pushed it. I think they're all in. I think with Dane Gagai signing back another 2-year extension with the Knights, 1 year fully guaranteed, showing that he has belief in Adam O'Brien and the mission and the focus and I just think the Knights are going in the right way. So I've got the Knights over the Tigers. Rabbitohs versus the Dragons. I still got Shane Flanagan on the other side, and I've got the Rabbitohs even with the trail back. I'm still going with the Dragons. I think the Dargans, right? Is it the Dargans? Am I supposed to say the Dargans? Dargans, yeah, right? Okay, yes. My producer says I'm supposed to say the St. George Dargans. So I got the Dargans beating the Rabbitohs. Sharks versus the Storm. There it is, the match we just talked about. I'm going with the Sharks. I really do. I think Nico, even without Trindle in the halves, I just think Nico is playing better even than his Dally M year. I think the Sharks find a way. I think we actually see a little bit, no matter if they won't admit to any of any excuses to their loss, but I just really feel that the Sharks have too much, and Melbourne is going to be a little too depleted to play with them for a full 80 minutes. Warriors versus the Roosters. I want to so bad pick the Warriors so they can get their season righted and going back in the direction most of us feel they should be going. But I'd be an idiot because right now the Chooks, to me, are playing possibly the best footy besides Cronulla. I got the Roosters at home. Again, sending the Warriors to another loss. And, not good news for New Zealand. But still up the was. Cowboys versus the Titans. I know the Titans have played some incredible footy the last few weeks. They only have something to show against the Warriors. But I just think the Cows are just too much of a complete side. And I think the Titans, I think we might actually see a little bit of that David Fifita hangover continue. Because I know no matter what players say that there's been a lot of weight going on in that locker room and that sheds with that decision that's impending. So I'm going with the Cows to beat the Titans to finish off this round of the NRL. Now, my gun of the round, I've got to go with the guy I mentioned a little bit earlier, Angus Crichton. This redemption story, this story of revitalization. This guy who doesn't have all of his fingers, he's got a little nub on one of them, but Angus Crichton's playing some incredible footy, and he deserves to be honored. He deserves to be recognized, and this is where he becomes the gun of the round. 2 tries, 156 running meters, 2 line breaks, 1 line break assist, 1 try assist, 7 tackle breaks, 13 hit-ups, and 28 tackles made. A really complete game from Angus Crichton. And again, he puts another couple rounds like this together like he just did this last week up at Suncorp. You're going to see him in the Blues roster, which I think would be really incredible to see again. So, Angus Crichton, congratulations. Now, Shedheads, before I finish this episode, I've got to say I forgot to give a big shout out to the voice, besides myself, of Outside the Sheds, because on my trip, I did not go into detail that I got to hang out with the great David Lindsay, the voice that introduces me every week. Please follow this guy. He does such incredible things. But David and his lovely daughter, who you can't stop her from talking. You just really can't. She's got so much to say. But love them both. But David made a point to come into the terminal and come all the way to the area where we load, which you can't do in the divided states. But in Australia, you can actually come all the way back and follow your loved one or your friend all the way right up until when they load up on the plane. But David came all the way back, spent some incredible time with me and Mrs. Shedadamus, and I love the guy. He's to say he's a true friend is an understatement, and he does such incredible things. He gives his time to others, and he makes the Shedadamus look like a partial person because of all the good stuff he does. So, big man, I'm a big fan. Love you dearly. And again, keep changing the world. One different YouTube video and one great motivational talk at a time. But with that being said, Shedheads, that's enough of me. Your shallow Shedadamus is out the door. I'm going to spend a little bit of time with Rico, his dog, and with his lovely wife, Mrs. Shedadamus. But until next week, enjoy this round, and I will see ya.
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.